Stripping this R380 down, it's already been cleaned on the outside, but when we took it apart we found out it was full of debris inside. So what we're going to do first of all is take the bell housing off, and that's really easy to do. There's two bolts here with 13mm heads, and in the back here there's 6 bolts with 15mm heads. Now you've got to take this piece off here, the bearing support, before you can get to a couple of the bolts in there, because your gun can't quite get in there. And it's always recommended to take them off with an impact gun, because trying to pull them, you know, with a bar is a bit tricky. You can do it, you know, don't get me wrong, you can do these things, but it's easier with a gun. So let's get that off, and then we're going to take this top cover off here. Now he's put one of those slick shifty things in there. I'm quite interested to have a look at that and see what that's like. And then we're going to lift it up a bit and drain the remaining oil out of this box, because it's been stood for a couple of days. So we did drain the oil out, but there's always oil that gets into there, and it makes a mess. It makes a mess of your bench when I can spit it out. The drain bung usually is a good idea of what's going on in your gearbox, but sometimes you'll see metal flakes like this, and really it's nothing to worry about. It always gets little grindy bits where you've missed gears and stuff like that, but it's not the end of the world. What is the end of the world? When there's bearings and big lumps of gear stuck to that, so that's something to worry about. The downside of the R380, in its infinite wisdom, they put on the LT77 it had a removable filter underneath the gearbox. Well, that was great. But in the R380 they put it horizontal inside the box. You can't change it, you can't clean it. What's the point of a filter? Well, I know what the point of the filter is, obviously to protect the oil pump at the back. But you couldn't clean it even if you wanted to. Bad move, eh? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to fix up my my puller, and I find all the bits, and we're going to pull this ring off. Now I have done this already on a video, so I'm going to pause this and take the ring off, because I have got a full section on stripping an R380 down. The reason why I'm doing this again is just to show Charles, the customer, what we're up against and what's in there, because sometimes you can just say, well, we'll just put another gearbox in. Well, we haven't got one, so we're going to have to rebuild this one. And you know, like even if we get one from England, the surcharge of getting one from England and flying it over, well, it's kind of expensive. And $2,500 American from Rovers North exchange, I don't think so. So let's get on with this. Getting them off getting these rings off takes kind of a bit of a force. This is why you need an impact gun, because if you're using a bar, well, there's nothing really to hold the box, and it's all going to sort of wobble around a bit. Oh, he loves taking nuts and bolts off, does Charles? She's off. Now we can get into here. Once we've got the top cover off, we need to get this grub screw out of this selector. It's a 5mm Allen key, but it's going to be monster tight. So we need to warm it up with the propane or the mat gas to break the Loctite. And then it'll come out. And you can see how tight it is. There we go. Once we've got this 5mm grub screw, or set screw as they call them in North America, we can then turn the box and get these Allen bolts out of here and the bolts around the casing. Now these are a splined headed bolt, so they're not Torx. You can actually use, they're 10mm, so you can use a ring spanner, or you can use a little 3/8 socket and come in through the side like I do. Also, we've got to take out this 10mm headed nut here, and this little piece of, I don't know what you call it, a retainer. What else have we got to take off? There's nothing else on the back apart from that. So let me get this out, get these screws out, and we'll show you what happens next. To get this retainer out, simply put a flat blade screwdriver inside here and twist and turn it out, and it'll come out like a dream. Now, Once that's out, put the bolt back in the hole. Don't drop it in the gearbox, please. These things are a bit fiddly to get out. And then what I do, all the bits we don't have, get into your lass's kitchen and pinch some sandwich bags or whatever, and then put all the bits in bags that's loose. Alright, so because you can write on them, you don't have to have great big bags like this, but it's a good idea if you're not familiar with things. Just put it on sandwich bags and write on the top what the bits are. I'll put all the bolts for this end in this bag, so we know where everything is. Now I've got to take these off and then these off. Once we've got all the bolts around the outside out and those two bolts on the inside, we can then take this end cover off. Now don't be tempted to hit on these lugs here and bend them and break them off. There's a nice little lug here that's not too important, so you can give that a little bit of a tap. Remember, this is sort of silicone. They use a silicone. There's no gaskets in an R380, so you've just got to be that little bit careful taking these off. The reason why is that there's nothing now holding this end plate to the gearbox, so you can pull it all to bits all at once, and we don't really want to do that. And you can see now, look, that's why we always have an abundance of paper towel everywhere, because it'll bleed oil everywhere. So there we go, a couple of taps and it's off. And there's the filter. See what I was saying? You can't clean that filter. They're only cheap, but what a mess about to try and put one in. Kaput. What do we observe in here? Well, the bearings look quite good. They don't look too worn at all. So we're going to try and salvage those. You know, like your first observation's kind of important, because you know where you're going. It doesn't look too bad at all. So we're just looking at these synchros, making sure that there's a nice sufficient gap whilst it's assembled. This is the third and reverse. This reverse gear here, the teeth are quite chewed, and that would probably explain why there's a few filings, because people don't allow the gearbox to slow down. Even though it's got a synchro mesh on reverse, they don't allow it to slow down, and then they push it and it grinds into gear and it gets all little bits all over the place. I don't know if you can see that. It'd be nice to see if I can zoom in a bit. Kind of tricky to zoom in and do this at the same time. There. So you can probably see what I'm trying to say. The teeth here are pretty much chewed up, and the synchro ring is very, very thin. In fact, there's not much left of it, so it's been ground into reverse. So that's something to look forward, not look forward to. If everything was to look forward to like that, what a miserable life it would be. So now we're going to strip this down, and we'll zoom out and we'll show you how that's done. If you're fortunate to have one of these tools, it comes in useful for all sorts of bits and pieces. And now we can take the race off the shaft using this tool. Like that. We've already taken off the split collar. In fact, on some of these gearboxes, this ring and these collars were modified, so you don't need to put the little ring in here. There's a little pin just here. Let's see if we can zoom again. There's a little pin just here, and you don't really need to put that in. So that's one thing to watch out for. So the next thing we're going to do is take this bottom bearing off here. And then we can take this piece off. That'll just slide off. But getting this off, I don't have the right adapter. I'm going to get some made that goes onto there to pull that out. But there's our bearing race. So again, what we're going to do now for all the bits that's on the inside, we're going to grab another polythene bag, pop everything in that we need, keep it all clean. So I'm going to get a couple of pry bars and pry that off. This is how you get the bearing off if you've got no tools. A couple of pry bars, get behind it, and throw it on the floor. Not intentionally. Now we can get to the nut. Now this is looking interesting. I love doing this so I can show you guys, instead of being a, you know, sort of how to do, we're going to find out what's wrong. Look down here. As again, this is in real time. Let's zoom in a bit more. We're getting very fragile. Look at this here. This looks like it's been off before, but they haven't stalked over the nut. Look at this. It's been stalked over here. So has it moved? It's tight, but it's still not stalked over. Oh dear. And what's the end float like? Well, it's difficult to see what the end float's like because we've got no bolts in. So let's have a zoom out. It's going to be easy to get off because we don't have to put a wedge in there to wedge open that nut. And also at the same time, I'm going to knock that pin out from the other side. And I think in my little box somewhere, I do have the definitive pin punching tool. So I can put that through there, knock that out. Guess what? Where that goes in the bag, along with that bearing. Clean all those lot out later. So next thing, take that nut off. To prevent the gears clattering together if you're using an impact gun, just get a bit of rag and ram it between the teeth. Look at that. It took nothing to get off. Look at that, I could have taken that off my teeth. Well, that's interesting. See, so somebody's been into this before, and I'm just wondering whether somebody's changed the main shaft before and put another one in exactly the same, but without changing the gear. I suspect so. So we might be okay for bearings, might just need to change the synchro rings. So that gear comes off. There, the nut in there. Now we can take this lot off. So this is a little bit more tricky because we've got a lot of bits and pieces to take off at once. We're going to slide that piece off, that gear, that's the 5th gear. Take that off, slide the bearing out and pop it in the bearing. You'll see in a minute what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie wrap them all together so they go together. Now you can actually change the gear ratios for the 5th gear on the back of the R380, but it gives a little bit more top speed, but negligible. But if your gears are broken, hey, why not go upgrade? So I'm going to get some circlip pliers and take this circlip out of here. Oh, here we go again. See that circlip there? Always replace the circlips, don't use them again, they're not worth it. And then we can take this assembly out. This is a bit tricky. This bit's a bit tricky to get out, so I'll show you how you do it. To get this synchro hub off, it's kind of easy, but you've got to get things aligned right. So the gearbox must be in neutral. You cannot do it in any other gear but neutral, and you can tell that by looking here. There's three cutouts with your detent balls in here, and it must be in the middle. Okay, and then as you can see, you can slide this shuttle backwards and forwards. Let me see if I can turn this around a little bit so you can see it a bit better. Oop, there we go. So what you've got to do is turn this shuttle so it's here, and then we're going to turn this. Where's so much to turn it with? This will do. We're going to turn that so it's sticking up like that, and then put this back down again because it's getting a bit heavy. Then with the circlip out, we can pull that unit off and forward in one big unit. Now sometimes they are a bit sticky because there's some burrs on the shaft, and we can drop things on the floor as well. And don't worry, because they're all going to get washed anyway. And then we're going to put these back on. Whoa! Well, there's something else we've found out. See the synchro ring? You see here? Is busted. That's something that needs changing. Whoever's done this gearbox didn't do a very good job, because those yellow ones are actually the original ones. So we've got that, we've got that. Now we can slide this off. Dodgy teeth. It's like your grandma who wants dentures. Look at this here, what a mess. Okay, that's that off. The bearing, the sleeve, and most importantly, everybody forgets it, drops on the floor when you're pressing things out, this shim, very important. It's important you keep it. Now 99% of the times you can reuse this shim again, because the machining on the new shafts is absolutely superb. I've never had a bad shaft yet, so we'll put that together, and now we're going to just run across here and get a big tie wrap. That seems to like going on the floor, so we'll keep it there, I think. And then we're going to put a tie wrap on around this. Doesn't matter if they all fall to bits, but at least they're all in order. Alright, so that's a good thing, that's done. This fork that keeps falling off can only go on one way. Oh, I'm zoomed in, aren't I? Let's go and help it again. No wonder you can't see what's going on. Good job you missed that. And now we are ready to split the casing. Wow. So let's get the stand set up. Just before we do put it on the stand, you need to take this torque screw out of here and retrieve the spring and the ball, because otherwise they'll drop on the floor and make life difficult getting this shaft out. And also we've got to take this plate out, which holds the selector ring in. Not a selector ring, I don't know what it's called, to be honest, but it's a little forky thing that goes in there. Let's call it a forky thing. And then we can split the casing. Because this gearbox is coming apart and it's just a bit rough, I didn't bother putting it on the frame to take it apart. I put it on the frame to have a look at it. So all I'm just going to do now is just pull it all apart. And this is a bit... It's easy to pull apart, but not... You couldn't put it together like this. So we'll take this bit off, and you can see how it all just falls to bits. There we go. And then we have to turn this piece round to go through this slot in the casting. Kind of easy. Push it through, and now you've got to watch out for your balls, because they're going to spring everywhere. Where did they go? Oh, they're still stuck in there. There they are, don't lose them. Alright, so we're going to put that where we won't lose them. And also, that was a bit dramatic. But what we're going to do is going to save the shims that came out behind the bearing. Okay, so we're going to save those bits. And now we can have a sort of a quick look at our bearings and things like this. The bearings actually don't look too bad. I think this has been in bits before. The lay shaft looks good. All the bearings, first impression, look good. There's no chunks and pieces missing off the lay shaft. That's good. The input shaft, or the primary motion shaft, yeah, that looks good. There's a nice gap between the synchros here. Now Charles was complaining that, well, he was just stating that the third gear was a little bit notchy. It looks like the synchro is very thin. Same with the second gear. See, look how loose that second gear is. We might have to have a look at that. But that whole assembly, well, that's not too bad. It's not too bad. But this synchro seems awful loose, and if it's anything like the other one, the springs had broke inside. So we're going to get this on the press and let's have a look at it and see what's inside. So I pressed off the gears and the hubs and things like this, and I've come to the conclusion that somebody's changed this shaft before but didn't change the corresponding gear, which is bad. So the bearings seem to be good. There's a couple of gears that's not very nice. Yeah, not too bad. It'll clean up, but we need a shaft, we need some gears, we need some synchros, we need some synchro springs, and that's it. Now the most important thing why I did this little section of the video is we need to check this number here. There is actually a number written on there, so we're going to get some very fine sandpaper and just see what that number is, because that's what we need to order the parts from, because like I said, there are some subtle differences in gears and you know, the different years and different gearboxes. The suffix J seems to be the most popular, but let's have a look and see what this one is. So the gearbox number is 56A with the suffix J, and you can just to say barely make it out, but there's the numbers, that's the serial number in there. Now sometimes even though it's a suffix J, the gearbox years and can change, and they change the number, so it'll say suffix J from XXXX, so just be careful of that. Now if you do find a very strange number on here, it sometimes can be an Ashcroft number. They grind these off and restamp their own number on there. So if you're not sure what the gearbox is and you've got a very strange number, email Ashcrofts and they'll tell you exactly what it is. Alright, so I hope that helps. We're going to just disappear for lunch now, and then we're going to make an order for the parts. So we'll talk to you later. So it looks like somebody had been into this gearbox before. They did a good job. I mean, the only thing was they made a mistake about putting the main shaft in here without the corresponding gear with a hole in it, which is a bit sad. Still, never mind. We'll do it right this time. Yeah, so if you want to make your Land Rover better, you've got to do it right. Sometimes you can cut corners, because otherwise we could have just replaced everything, every bearing, every nut, bolt, washer, you know. But in this case, we can actually salvage it by doing it ourselves. And there are one or two tools that you do need. This is really handy, this piece of kit, to pull off the bearings, pull off the sleeves and the bearings, etc. But I think you could do it, you know, if you adapted a three-legged puller or something like that. So you can make your Land Rover better on a budget. And why not have a go? What's the worst you can do? I don't know. But anyway, I'm not going to put a video of putting this together, because I've already done one before. But if you want me to see it put together, then drop me a line. We'll see what we can do. Alright, so we'll talk to you later.